On the surface, it was the perfect story. A brilliant diplomat, educated at Harvard and Oxford, gives up a promising career to marry Japan's crown prince. She is poised to one day become an empress, with a vault of priceless jewels awaiting her. But behind the palace gates, the story took a different turn. For over a decade, as crown princess, Masako largely retreated from public life, facing immense personal pressures. The grand tiaras of the empress were reserved for the reigning monarch, symbols of a future she had yet to reach. And the jewels she was meant to wear rarely saw the light of day. Today, we open the Imperial jewel box, not just to admire the magnificent collection, but to understand the deeply human story the jewels represent. This is the story of the woman behind the jewels, and the weight they truly carry on the chrysanthemum throne. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. To truly understand the story of Empress Masako's jewels, you have to begin not with the blaze of diamonds, but with the quiet, luminous glow of pearls. Long before she was a princess, Masako Owada was a woman noted for her sophisticated, modern style, and her signature jewel of choice even then was almost always pearls. It was a style of understated, confident elegance that was perfectly suited for the world of international diplomacy she inhabited. Her personal preference was a poetic fit for the role she was about to step into. Japan is the birthplace of the cultured pearl, pioneered by Mikimoto Kokichi. The flawless, perfectly round Akoya pearl is a national symbol, and the Imperial family has a long and deep connection to these lustrous gems. When Masako joined the family, her personal style merged seamlessly with Imperial tradition. And even today, as Empress, pearls remain the foundation of her public wardrobe. For daytime events like the prestigious Japan Prize ceremony, you will see her in an elegant jacket, her look completed by a beautiful pearl necklace and earrings. Sources note she favors the flawless, perfectly round Akoya pearls, usually no more than 10 millimeters in diameter. Her style is minimalist, allowing the natural radiance of the gems to take center stage. Furthermore, her choice of how to wear pearls can send a powerful, unspoken message. Take, for example, the formal New Year's reception. For this grand occasion, a multi-strand pearl necklace is often part of the traditional attire, but at the first reception held after the pandemic, a time of great hardship and sobriety for the nation, Empress Masako made a different choice. She appeared in a beautiful and simple single-strand pearl necklace. The gesture was subtle, but it was widely understood by the Japanese people. It was seen as an act of quiet solidarity and restraint, a deeply empathetic acknowledgement of the nation's mood. It showed an empress who was not just following protocol, but was keenly aware of her people's circumstances. This is the language of grace she had long mastered, a language now used to communicate not just elegance, but profound empathy. But on her wedding day, she would be asked to learn a new dialect in the language of jewels, one spoken not in the quiet luster of pearls, but in the brilliant, heavy fire of inherited diamonds. On her wedding day, June 9, 1993, Masako Owada wore a jewel that was far more than just a bridal accessory. As she appeared before the world, she was adorned in the diamond scroll tiara and its magnificent mirrored necklace. This was her formal introduction to the world as Crown Princess of Japan, and the jewel she wore was a story in itself. To understand its significance, we must go back to 1959, a year of profound change in Japan. The nation was captivated by the upcoming wedding of its heir, Crown Prince Akihito, to Michiko Shoda, the first commoner to marry into the imperial line. This event created a national fascination, a Michiko boom, and the public eagerly awaited every detail. The anticipation for her wedding tiara was so intense that its design even leaked to the press before the official ceremony. Commissioned from Japan's master jeweler, Mikimoto, the tiara's design was deeply symbolic. It wasn't just a random pattern of scrolls. It was based on the traditional Japanese karakusa, or arabesque motif. In Japanese culture, This flowing, scrolling vine represents the promise of endless growth and prosperity, a beautiful and powerful wish for the new princess and the future of the monarchy. There is also a belief that this new creation was a clever redesign of a tiara belonging to the previous empress, Kojun, respectfully blending the past with a vision for the future. For 3 decades, this was Empress Michiko's definitive jewel as crown princess, establishing a modern tradition for the wife of the heir. Therefore, when the time came for Masako to wear it, the moment was heavy with history and ritual. Sources tell us that before it was passed to her, the tiara was meticulously purified and even consecrated. This wasn't a simple handover from a mother-in-law to her daughter-in-law. It was a sacred ceremony underscoring the gravity of the role she was accepting. For Masako, wearing this tiara was her formal entry into the family, a sign of respect for her predecessor, and an acceptance of the traditions of the chrysanthemum throne. And this jewel, this beautiful symbol of a new beginning, was only the first of the dynastic jewels that would come to define her journey. But the story of that magnificent wedding set doesn't end with the tiara and necklace. It also includes a beautiful diamond brooch, and this smaller piece would become one of the most consistent and telling jewels in Empress Masako's collection. The brooch is crafted with the same modern, mirrored scrolling elements as the grander pieces, tying it directly to the promises and legacy of her wedding day. But unlike a tiara, which is reserved for the grandest state occasions, a brooch is a working jewel. It's for the daytime audiences, the award ceremonies, the countless public duties that make up the life of a royal. And if you look through the archives, you see this brooch appear time and time again, like a quiet, constant companion. We see it in the early days of her marriage, pinned to a dress for a New Year's appearance in 1994. It's there throughout the late 90s. It appears again in the mid-2000s, a period we now know was incredibly challenging for her. And that consistency is revealing. The fact that she continued to wear this specific piece, a direct link to her role and her wedding vows, speaks to her quiet dedication. It suggests a commitment to her duties, even when the pressures behind the scenes were immense. This brooch became a subtle symbol of her presence, a sparkling reminder of the role she held. But soon, even this quiet presence would become a rarity, and the grander jewels of a crown princess would fall almost completely silent. The diamond scroll tiara, the magnificent symbol of the crown princess's office, was meant to be Masako's primary jewel for state occasions. But for much of the early 2000s, both the tiara and the crown princess herself were absent from the public stage. The years following Masako's marriage were marked by immense and very public pressure. The most intense of these was the expectation to produce a male heir to the chrysanthemum throne, after a heartbreaking miscarriage in 1999, which some blamed on the stress caused by a premature media leak. She gave birth to a daughter, Princess Aiko, in 2001. But because Japanese law only allows males to inherit the throne, the pressure did not cease. It intensified. The public expectation for a male heir was relentless, and this, combined with the rigid constraints of palace life, took a profound toll. In 2004, the Imperial Household Agency made the rare announcement that the crown princess was suffering from an adjustment disorder, a stress-related condition. Her husband, Crown Prince Naruhito, had already made an unprecedented public defense of his wife, speaking of developments that were regarded as denying Masako's career, as well as her personality. He spoke of her anguish at being unable to use her diplomatic skills, her life reduced to a single crushing expectation. For more than 10 years, Masako largely withdrew from official duties. But behind the scenes, wheels were turning. The first significant easing of pressure came in 2006, with the birth of a male heir, Prince Hisahito, to Naruhito's younger brother. The succession was now secure, lifting a great weight from Masako's shoulders. Around this time, her husband's quiet, steadfast support was joined by that of another royal family, the House of Orange-Nassau. In 2006, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands invited the crown princely couple and their young daughter for a private 2-week holiday. This act of kindness, away from the scrutiny of the Japanese court, was a crucial step in her recovery. It was also in the mid-2000s that another tiara officially entered her collection, the pearl sunburst tiara. This jewel was also created for Empress Michiko in 1959 as part of her crown princess jewels and came as a set with a coordinating necklace and brooch. Its design is a masterpiece of modernism, sleek, almost Art Deco, with thin diamond rays creating a sunburst effect, tipped with perfectly round pearls that graduate in size toward the center. In Japan, this Nichiren no tiara is seen as a symbol of hope, light, and a new beginning. It is the perfect jewel for a modern, internationally minded monarchy. Masako was seen in the pearl sunburst tiara very briefly upon its transfer, arriving for a New Year's reception. But then, as her retreat from public life continued, this tiara too fell silent, waiting for its moment. The true return of this jewel, and of Masako to the world stage, came years later, once again with the help of her Dutch friends. In April 2013, she undertook her first official overseas trip in 11 years to attend the inauguration of King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima. It is said that Maxima had to persuade Masako to come in a personal phone call. The conversation helped strengthen her self-confidence. Though she attended the main ceremony, she carefully managed her energy and skipped the grand evening gala. But the step was taken. The following year, in 2014, when the new Dutch king and queen paid a state visit to Japan, Masako took another, even bigger step. She attended the state banquet in their honor at the Imperial Palace. She wore the complete pearl sunburst parure, the tiara on her head, the intricate matching necklace, and the beautiful swirling pearl and diamond brooch pinned to her sash. The choice was deeply symbolic. She didn't return in the scroll tiara, the jewel of her difficult early years. She returned in the sunburst, the tiara of hope and new beginnings. This jewel, with its international modern feel, became her tiara of choice for her gradual return. It was her jewel of quiet hope, worn not with the fanfare of a wedding, but with the gentle, hard-won strength of a woman finding her footing again. As the 2010s progressed, and the time of Emperor Akihito's abdication drew nearer, Masako began to appear more frequently at high-profile events, and the full pearl sunburst parure, with its exquisite brooch, became her signature set for this era. We saw this set again and again at major state banquets held at the Imperial Palace, for the state visit from Belgium in 2016, for Spain in 2017, and for Luxembourg later that same year. She also wore the tiara for the formal New Year's receptions in 2017 and 2018, gradually increasing her participation in these demanding ceremonies. Each appearance was a quiet, steady statement that the crown princess was taking on more of her public duties, preparing for her future role. But her exploration of the imperial vaults during this period of reemergence wasn't limited to just one set. In 2015, for a state banquet in honor of the President of Singapore, she wore a different but equally historic jewel, a striking pearl and diamond necklace that had once belonged to Princess Chichibu, her husband's great-aunt. Princess Chichibu was herself a well-traveled and highly respected member of the family, known for her international work. By choosing this specific heirloom, Masako was respectfully connecting with another globally minded princess from a previous generation. On May 1, 2019, a new era began in Japan. Emperor Akihito abdicated, and his son, Crown Prince Naruhito, ascended to the chrysanthemum throne. At his side, Masako became the new Empress of Japan. For years, the grandest tiaras in the imperial collection had been reserved for the reigning Empress, Michiko. For Masako, they were symbols of a future she had yet to reach, but on the very day of her husband's accession, that future became her present. During the Sokuigo Choken no Gi ceremony, her first audience as Empress, Masako appeared wearing a jewel of immense historical importance, the Meiji tiara. This is arguably the most significant tiara in the Japanese imperial vaults. Its story is the story of modern Japan itself. It was created around 1885, a time when Japan, under the Meiji Emperor, was rapidly opening to the West and adopting many of its customs, including Western-style court dress for its royals. The tiara was made for the first empress to have a major public role, Empress Haruko. It was crafted in Europe, possibly by the famed jeweler Chomei, in a grand scroll design that was fashionable at the time. It was even designed to be worn with detachable diamond stars, a style popularized by another iconic 19th-century royal, Empress Sisi of Austria. This tiara symbolizes Japan's entry onto the modern world stage, and it is reserved exclusively for the reigning empress. From Empress Haruko, it passed to Empress Sadako, then to Empress Nagako, and then to Empress Michiko. For over 130 years, it has been worn by the woman at the very apex of the imperial family. So when Empress Masako appeared in the Meiji tiara for the first time, it was a moment charged with meaning. She was no longer the crown princess, waiting in the wings. She was now the custodian of this incredible legacy. By placing this historic diadem on her head, she was visibly, brilliantly, taking her place in the long line of Japanese empresses. It was the first time she had worn one of the great tiaras, a jewel that for decades was both visible on her mother-in-law and completely unattainable for herself. The moment had finally arrived. As empress, Masako immediately faced her first major diplomatic test. In late May 2019, less than a month after the accession, a state visit arrived from the President of the United States. The world watched closely to see how the new empress would present herself. For the state banquet, she made a choice that was both elegant and deeply personal. She appeared in a dazzling necklace of diamonds set in rich yellow gold. The jewel was a striking departure from the traditional platinum and pearl of the imperial court. This was not a dynastic heirloom. It was a personal wedding gift she had received back in 1994 from Sultan Qaboos bin Said of Oman, part of a lavish parure that can also be worn as a tiara. For decades, this opulent Middle Eastern-style jewel had remained in her private collection, unseen by the public. To wear it for her very first state banquet as empress was a powerful statement. It was a choice that told a story. Masako, the former diplomat, was using a diplomatic gift to welcome a world leader. It was a subtle but unmistakable signal of the kind of empress she intended to be: confident, internationally minded, and unafraid to draw on her own unique experience. It was her way of telling the world that she had returned, and now she was speaking the language of diplomacy from the chrysanthemum throne. After her accession, Empress Masako established herself in her new role with grace and quiet confidence, often wearing the magnificent Meiji tiara for the most formal Japanese state occasions. But there was one other great tiara, perhaps the most symbolically potent of all, that remained unseen. This was the Imperial chrysanthemum tiara. The chrysanthemum, or kiku in Japanese, is more than just a flower. A stylized 16-petaled chrysanthemum is the official seal of the Imperial House of Japan. It adorns the imperial throne itself, giving rise to the term the chrysanthemum throne as a synonym for the monarchy. It is the badge of the nation's highest order of chivalry. It is, in essence, the ultimate symbol of imperial power and heritage. The tiara that bears this emblem is a delicate masterpiece, believed to have been created around 1917 for Empress Taimei, possibly by Mikimoto, by repurposing a series of diamond chrysanthemum brooches. Composed entirely of diamonds, it features 7 intricate chrysanthemums and, like the Meiji tiara, it is reserved exclusively for the reigning empress. It was a favorite of Empress Nagako and was later worn often by Empress Michiko, but for 5 years after her accession, Empress Masako did not wear it. This absence created a quiet anticipation among royal watchers worldwide. When would she debut this most significant of jewels? The answer came in June 2024 on the world's most visible stage. During the state visit to the United Kingdom for the magnificent state banquet at Buckingham Palace, Empress Masako made her choice. She appeared for the first time in the Imperial chrysanthemum tiara. The moment was electric. To debut such a profoundly Japanese and symbolic jewel on foreign soil during an event watched by millions was a statement of supreme confidence. She was not just fulfilling a duty, she was wielding the full symbolic power of her office. For a woman who had spent years in the shadows, stepping into the full glare of the international spotlight, wearing the very emblem of the chrysanthemum throne, became the culmination of her long journey. This was more than just a tiara debut. It was a sign that the Empress is fully present, fully in command of her role, and ready to represent the ancient monarchy of Japan with strength and dignity before the world. Becoming Empress meant Masako now had access to the full regalia of her office, including some of the most historic jewels in the collection, the Imperial diamond rivieres. These are not modern pieces. Their story begins in the 1880s, alongside the creation of the Meiji tiara. The commission from the Meiji Emperor included 3 of these magnificent, perfectly matched diamond necklaces, designed to be worn together for the ultimate display of imperial splendor. Early empresses, like Shokin and Taimei, were indeed photographed wearing all 3 strands. However, over the decades, the style of wearing them evolved. After World War II, Empress Kojun often preferred a more understated look, typically wearing just 1 or 2 of the rivieres at a time. Her successor, Empress Michiko, established an even more consistent and distinct style. She almost exclusively wore a single one of the 3 necklaces, which she would sometimes pair with her own separate diamond pendant. This was the context when Empress Masako first appeared in the Meiji tiara in 2019. She made a choice that was different from her immediate predecessor. For her first audience as Empress, and for the spectacular enthronement banquet that followed, she wore 2 of the historic rivieres together. Since then, she has demonstrated the full versatility of these historic jewels. For the 2024 New Year's reception, she chose a more delicate look, pairing the Meiji tiara with a single strand, echoing the style of Empress Michiko. But for the grand state banquet at Buckingham Palace in June 2024, she once again wore 2 strands, this time with the dazzling chrysanthemum tiara. We have seen her wear 1 strand, and we have seen her wear 2. However, the full, magnificent set of 3 historic rivieres has not yet been seen on the current Empress, leaving a moment of ultimate imperial splendor for a future occasion. The public life of Empress Masako is a story of profound change, one that continues to unfold before our eyes. The jewels she has worn serve as markers on this journey, each corresponding to a distinct chapter in her life. We have seen the diamond scroll tiara, which she wore in her early years as crown princess, the pearl sunburst tiara, which accompanied her gradual return to public duties, and now the great Meiji and chrysanthemum tiaras reserved for her role as empress. Today, in performing her duties, she has earned the deep respect and sympathy of the Japanese people. Her story has resonated with many, and she is seen as a symbol of a modern woman navigating the pressures of a traditional world. The Imperial Household Agency and the Empress herself have been open that her recovery is an ongoing process, with its own ups and downs. With the steadfast support of her husband, Emperor Naruhito, she continues on her path. And what of the jewels that marked her early years as crown princess? They continue their journey of service. The diamond scroll tiara has now been passed to the new crown princess, Kiko, and the pearl sunburst tiara is expected to be passed to her as well in the future, an appearance eagerly awaited by imperial watchers. From the understated elegance of a single pearl strand to the full splendor of the chrysanthemum throne, the jewels worn by Empress Masako are more than just beautiful objects. They are a visible, brilliant part of a remarkable and deeply human story. I would be so interested to hear your thoughts on this remarkable story. And of course, I'm always curious. Do you have a favorite tiara from the magnificent collection of the Japanese Imperial family? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of Empress Masako and her magnificent jewels. If you found this story as compelling as I did, I would be so grateful if you would like this video and consider subscribing. It truly helps this channel continue to explore these fascinating histories. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.